How many factions have they got within a cult? And you're absolutely right. You know, I think it was George Herbert or somebody, Frank Herbert, the author, said that the fish is the last creature to understand that it's in water. You know, the last creature to understand the mystery of water is the fish. So of course this is what happens. So my question is not ending the cults, or, you know, it's finding out why would man want to be part of that. And again, a cult is defined by hierarchy. Thousands and thousands of people sitting cross-legged or whatever in front of some guru. What would make one man want to do that? Is it because man's psyche, as we've been saying, introducing this idea, is so fragmented, so traumatized, so utterly insecure, that it literally has to have a big daddy at the top of the totem pole shining his powerful light, his phallic light, his beam of light down onto everyone else to say, you are the herd and you're going to just go crazy, and the bottomless pit will open unless you stay focused on me. I am the model. You lose your identity in me. This is happening all over the world. It's not just, in fact, it predates Christianity. It's just that Christianity is one of the easiest ways to see this operation taking place. And this loss of individuality into the major figure, into the big daddy, into the hologram, you know, and you see this beautifully portrayed in Star Trek V, the movie, where the protagonist, in this case Captain Kirk, refuses to lose his identity in the god-like character, even when he's standing in front of God. You know, I don't know about you, but when I watched that film, I found that I was almost like jumping up for joy in the theater. You know, I was very impressed with that.
Yeah.
That I've got a question for God. You know.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to see more of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that we're sitting here, you know, wanting to attack unnecessarily.
Sure.
But we have some very serious questions about, you know, what is really going on here and why man would want to do certain kinds of things. And if it is in fact linked to the trauma, I can understand why. That such an unnatural thing as hierarchy would replace holarchy. There is reasons for that. And we have to understand. Because remember, like I said, if people are asking questions about how to build an alternative system, well, you got to know what the system you've got is already and where its failures are.
That's right, yeah.
And have the question.
Yeah.
And the freedom to ask the question. And one of the most biggest problems is that I think that one of the biggest delusions is that we actually believe that Christianity, and people, as I'm saying this, can review it in their mind right now, we have an idea that as soon as you mention the word Christianity, or even religion, but certainly the word Christianity, that it's God-inspired. This is a delusion. God did not, let me just wake everybody up here, just in case they ever fell into this delusion, God did not create Christianity.
Yeah.
Okay, that might come as a big shock to somebody, but then those people need to wake up. Christianity, like all religion, is man-made.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Vatican City is man-made.
Yeah.
Bible is man-made. You know, most of the stories about Jesus are man-made. Let's just face it.
Yeah.
God is not what we're critiquing here. Nor am I, when I talk about these things and get into detail, invading the private space of a person's private worship.
Sure. Yeah.
What that person does in their own life, how they've read these books, how they've understood these things, and their emotional, subjective understanding of religion is completely their own business. I'm talking about the institutions that have manifested themselves like a plague on this earth. And I do believe they are a cult. I do believe that they are extremely dangerous. And it's ludicrous and hypocritical for a person like me to say, well, I've got answers to fixing things, you know, or, you know, I got some suggestions about what can be done, without addressing that serious problem. Because I know that those things grew out of the trauma of the past, and in some way they were kind of necessary. But as the ego strengthens itself, and as selfhood, we come back to even some sort of center, we will need to dispense with these things. But the problem is, as I've discovered, and, you know, which is very much in my message, is that there's also forces out there that know that man is striving to grow and become centered again. And they are deeply threatened by that force. They know there's an Aquarian age coming on. They know there's a fifth dimensional transcendence perhaps going to take place. They know that man is straining into his chains. But what does that mean for them and their cults? Well, it's obvious. It's like any corporation. They're going to lose readers, you know, so to speak. You know, they're going to turn around and there's some chairs are empty. Because that is deadly. So, of course, what do? They come back in and try to shake up the problem, create more trauma to simulate the trauma. So this was done in the 1500s. under Gregory the Seventh.
Mm.
It's been done by several popes. It's been done by several politicians. It's being done today. It's an old formula in which you re-traumatize people in order to get them to fall into line, into groupthink, and into lockstep, you see. And what we're seeing now is, as I always term it, a war on consciousness. What you're seeing in the outer permutations of it, as horrific as it is, and we need to address those horrors, is ultimately a war on consciousness. But I'm also just very interested, in why there has been so much cruelty. Why today we're still getting reports that, in the Gulf, soldiers have been found. Jeff Rentz carried an article, it's right on his website there, about soldiers, American soldiers, urinating on the corpses of the people, civilians that they've killed.
Yeah.
It goes back to that old atrocities that everyone know were done in Vietnam.
Yeah.
As I'm saying something like that, people are balked in horror. Well, wait a minute, pull back a minute. As horrific as that is for individual soldiers to do that kind of thing, isn't there a war going on in which millions are being killed? Hundreds of people, thousands of people are being killed.
Yeah.
So see, what seems atrocious to us on the small scale of a rape, a murder, a terrible violation like that of human dignity, seems almost commendable and meaningless on the large scale. This is what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
What's wrong with the human nature?
Yeah, it's okay if it's within these parameters, the violence, like the as soon as you hear complaints sometimes, shooting at ambulances or whatever, or even hospitals being bombed or whatever. But as you say, what the heck? There's a war going on. I mean, there's rules and laws, but this is kind of the insanity of it all, that we're trying to justify that. Okay, we can kill people, but within these parameters, then it's okay or whatever. Very strange.
And Christianity is one of these, religions which is intolerant in this way. We look at the play on words alone. Inquisition. Inquisition is based on the word inquiry. Well, there's nothing of an inquiry going on with the Inquisition. What was going on there was interrogation. What was going on there was torture. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but there's a difference between an inquiry into something and an interrogation into something, and mass murder into something. So already we've got problems, But the thing that comes to mind, having said that, there's even the definition in the encyclopedia, where it says that on July 21st, 1542, Pope Paul III, with the Constitution, established the Supreme Sacred Congregation of the Roman and Universal Inquisition. All right, so it began in 1542 under Pope Paul III. Staffed by cardinals and other officials whose task it was to, quote, and this is the quote, to maintain and defend the integrity of the faith and to examine and proscribe errors and false doctrines. So the reason for the Inquisition was to maintain and defend the integrity of the faith and to examine. Examine doesn't mean torture people and kill them. It just means to examine and prescribe errors and false doctrines. Look how lovely that, it's just exactly like the Patriot Act today.
Yeah.
It's lovely language. We're going to protect you.
Yeah, sure.
It's all for your own good. There's enemies in our midst. We're just going to, find out who they are and bring them to justice.
Yeah.
But how does it work in real life when you've got sadistic people torn up inside, mentally toxic, who now have total carte blanche to go and do what they want under the name of this? But just from a purely semantic, philosophical point of view, why on earth would the church want to be defending the integrity of anything? You see how defense becomes attack? You see how the philosophy of defense builds a wall in which you've already as soon as you want to defend something, you've created an enemy.
Yeah, that's right.
And first of all, if your faith is any good, if your faith is really thou shalt not kill, and based in any type of virtue, which of course the Bible does contain, and which great Christians, many of them are my mentors, and the list is very long of the people that I consider mentors who are Christian. Of course, if it's based on any of that true, good Christianity, then you have no enemy.
That's right.
Because you have nothing to defend. Your thing is so strong, right? There's no point defending anything. So I'm already curious as to why an Inquisition would have been created that's already so intolerant. But again, it goes back to the idea that everybody has to be coming into the center. There can't. It's like the spectrum. Well, we can't have any ultraviolet. We can't have any, infrared. Can everybody just constellate in the center?
Sure. Yeah.
Because your God is getting really traumatized by all this diversity. We've got to have all of you, congealed and clustered into the middle, and we're not going to tolerate any type of dissent. Here we are in 2001, where even Muslims. And I don't know if anybody realizes this. It should be patently obvious to a 4-year-old child that Islamic religion is the biggest religion in the world. Please tell me how Islamic now can be the new pariah, the new nemesis, the new outsider. What kind of illogicism could possibly existing in our day and age that is actually making Islam and Arabic Islamic people an outsider religion? How psychopathic can you get? How congealed, you see?
Yeah.
And clustered could some fanatical people, naming no names, could want to get you, so homogenized that even the most generic people are now considered outsiders. Who was it who said, that it's okay, you can be free to write about anything as long as it's not about government? It's just phenomenal to me.
Yeah, that's right. As long as, exactly, I got the quote right here. As long as I don't write about the government, religion, politics, and other institutions, I'm free to print anything. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're free to print anything as long as it's not about religion, government, institutions, or what. And that's the freedom that people are saying, okay, I'll accept that.
Yeah.
Howard Zinn said it wonderfully. He said that civil disobedience is not our problem. Our problem is civil obedience.
There you go.
Your problem is not having rebels. We don't have enough rebels. Your wall-to-wall conformity is what you have. And then, of course, as I spoke in the Future of Mankind DVD, you have fake rebellion.
Of course, yeah.
It's not like what Quadrophenia is showing. It's not what you can find in the true expressions of true rebellion, which is a personal transformation that has nothing to do with the collective.
Sure. The
mods, the rockers, the freaks, the fashions, the goths, whatever you see on TV. Melrose Place, whatever kind of cultism you've got. What is a cult? Study it, So, civil obedience. Remember we talked about in the, in the Future of Mankind thing, where the whole idea of any kind of modern government, modern political figure, demagogue, is the same thing that we see in the Bible with that the chosen people are made chosen because of what virtue do they possess? They possess one virtue, which is obedience. So the slave-master relationship is based on that dynamic. The slave conforms and becomes obedient because he's been programmed down through time to believe that you only have one choice, and that is obey or die. It's like they said, march or die. If you believe that it's obey or die, then you obey.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for a person who's been repeatedly traumatized, who's been repeatedly disconnected, who's feeling so futile, who's terribly self-sadistic, and maybe, this is again a big key, the self-sadism, because I actually believe, you see, as I've said it, I don't know how many times in my writings, that the people at the helm of government are put there by us, but these people are basically possessed. They're not really human beings at all. They're sort of beings who have become, you can look at it in two ways. Let's look at it in two ways. By their own definition, they're possessed. Right? So speaking from a religious context, I totally believe that the people in power in tops of religion and government, royal families, all of these people are literally possessed by, power hunger, envy, greed, all of these things.
Sure.
And that they're basically disciples of sorcery. And they operate against the real magic of life. But another way to look at it is that these people are... Another way to look at it, and also you can understand it even in the Christian context. There are people, if you don't want to say they're possessed, then let's just say that they have have been absorbed by the core. Meaning they've lost self into the God at the top. Okay, so basically it's the same thing, but you can just look at it in two ways. Either the person has become possessed by some daemon, and therefore they're operating according to that archetype that's possessed them, or they've lost their identity into this other place.
Do you mean that could be a process that actually is taking place when they are put in a